2 champs now out of England. We're going to England. Pay-per-view.
That's what I like.
A great one.
That's what I like to hear.
That's great. I want to fight. That's all. I want to fight.
You like the idea of a pay-per-view in England?
UFC 304 has been announced for Manchester, England by having it for US prime time. So the time of the card is going to be as usual. That means 10 p.m. Eastern American time, meaning 3 a.m. for the UK audience.
The UFC's coming back to Manchester, not London.
I like that Manchester was just referred to as not London.
Yeah, exactly. Manchester, good place, lovely place.
Good people.
Either way,
good,
the UFC,
people.
They are good, hard-working people.
All right, Maggie. Okay.
It's not London, I swear.
The UFC's coming back to the UK out for a pay-per-view. All right, it's going to be a good time. Yeah. You can spend your pocket money. Get in car, mate. Pop on down Manchester. I won't take 20 minutes.
Where are you from?
In car. Yours. Mate, first of all, why is this pay-per-view happening at 3 a.m.?
Because more Americans buy this product than English people.
Yeah.
There you go, problem solved.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, see you.
Yep.
All right, guys, thank you. Cheers, shut it down.
But that is...
Well, so why did they do 286? Obviously, they did it to build up the UK audience, right? Like, let's have an event here. Well, let's have a champion who's actually English headline a pay-per-view. UFC 286, we went to that. At the end of that, I think they had a really great turnout. I think everything really sold well, all those things, whatever you want to say. They held it local time. So what is wrong with this pay-per-view where it looks like, this is still speculation. Tom Aspinall said he's already on the card, just waiting on the opponent to sign. Leon will probably be on it too. So what's the logic here? Like, why have it in London on local time, but not this one? So I guess I'll ask that to you because you had the simple answer to
he's not.
the
I've
American
got an
audience.
answer. I've got an answer if you don't have one. It might actually be a very simple case of Bisping, when they did it in the middle of the night last time, that wasn't in London, was it?
No, that was Manchester.
So it might be a case of the O2 literally has like a curfew on how long events can go.
Good point.
And they're just like, you cannot be in there past this time. Whereas in Manchester, they don't give a fuck, mate.
Like, I guess the argument, going back to your point, is that they'll sell more pay-per-views in the United States.
Yes.
That is true.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to do that, why not just hold it, I don't know, at a hybrid time? Like, why not try to... what's the point of even having an event where you're celebrating your champions in front of a championship crowd while they're all dead tired at 6 a.m.?
Yeah, I'll tell you something. In the main event of Bisping versus Henderson, so when we went at 204, we had a press pass with that was with What Culture, and they also gave us tickets, which was pretty cool. So you could actually go out into the arena and watch it. So, but we were in the nosebleed. So obviously, it was just a bunch of tickets that weren't sold that you could go up and watch. And I'm not joking. Pretty much all the nosebleeds were just like fast asleep because it was so hot in that arena. All the heat was rising up, and everyone was just like had like copious amounts of beer and just flooding their brain along with the heat. And everyone was just passed out. But there was literally a dude in front of me that was just snoring.
So is that the crowd you want at an event?
Well, yeah,
like
that's
this,
it, isn't it?
Historic occasion while people are just like. That
was Dan Henderson's last.
So that
fight
was
as well.
exactly 100 UFCs ago. They were in Manchester.
Yeah.
That's cool. Cool fact for you to take home, everybody. Do you really think that it's going to make that much of a difference, like in terms of pay-per-view sales, if it was on like 4 hours earlier? Like it feels like it doesn't.
Well, supposedly, because obviously we're talking about local stars and those being the drivers of this, where they're from. Habib Poirier supposedly sold extraordinarily well, and that was on Abu Dhabi time.
That's
middle
true.
of the day.
So it's like, if they're a star, they'll sell. If they're not a star, they won't sell. So just put it on at the time that makes the most sense.
Is there any like ESPN sway, or can the UFC kind of do what they want?
I don't think that they influence. That used to be a thing. So like Spike TV back in the day, it used to be super controversial. They would insist on airing at a better time slot. So they used to air the cards on tape delay. So when Dan Hardy got knocked out by Carlos Condit, we knew the results before that even aired in America.
Did you put a bet down?
James Krause.
But yeah. So like, it's happened before with tape delay and things like that to try to accommodate the American audience at a more kind of prime time, so to speak. But dude, I used to live in Eastern Time, U.S. We're only 5 hours behind here. Central U.S. is where I usually grew up, and yeah, the thing is, those cards are ending at like 2 a.m. Even in the U.S., these late times, kind of suck. They're even late for the US.
But yeah, you're totally right. What's the point of trying to create an international audience when you're only really catering for Americans despite being in the country?
Specifically West Coast
mental,
time zone even.
And to be fair to the fucking fighters as well, the people on the card are going to be European fighters that are used to the time. It's not like, is there an advantage for Americans coming over?
They're going to have to do the weird Abu Dhabi thing where they live nocturnally.
Yeah, but also because all the coaches are going to have to train nocturnally.
It's just really not helpful.
Yeah, and for anybody that wants to say it's just Abu Dhabi, I mean, I remember watching Zhang Weili win the title against Andrade, and that aired at 2 a.m. U.S. time.
Was that pay-per-view?
The main card started at like 2 a.m. U.S. time, so it was like inverted.
Yeah.
That was not a pay-per-view, that was a fight night,
Yeah.
and so it was even more kind of random,
If I was in America as well, like, honestly, I'd fucking love to watch a fight in the afternoon or like lunchtime.
I was going to say,
whatever
I'm
the
sure
fuck
there's
it
plenty
is.
of, I've heard that from the fans that like, excited for a Saturday afternoon card. So every pay-per-view at that time slot probably doesn't make sense, but one every so often, it can't hurt
like
that
every
much.
other
Like, people must
sport
love
kind of
it.
takes place like
in the afternoon. Football's
in
on.
the afternoon, or when does the NBA take place? That evening shows where you go and you watch a basketball game in the evening, or
Oh man, the last time, so when I lived in Indiana, I went to a Pacers game. I mean, that was evening. That would be after work. So, you're like 7, 8 p.m. But
but even that would be still pretty reasonable, I guess. I suppose US time.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, Sunday afternoon football is like as much a religion as religion there. It's like, I growing up in an evangelical community, I remember people basically telling the preacher like, "Hey, the game's on." Like, I'm not even kidding. That's like really a thing. Yeah, so it's like Sunday afternoon football. There's obviously Monday night football. There's all those kind of things, but in general, the big games take place in the middle of the afternoon on a weekend.
How much they are charging for tickets and the tickets prices to see the UFC, yet they're favoring pay-per-view times over real life times. So they want people to pay as much as they are to go to this event live. Brand new arena, new city in how many ever years it's been. And it's like they're going to charge that much. And then if you want like cage side, it's like over 1,000.
Oh, yeah.
At least.
Why aren't they doing like Cardiff? Why aren't they doing these big arenas where they absolutely could pack it out? And if you're going to do it, you're going to do it while you absolutely, like, this has never happened in the country before where there's been 2 English champions at the exact same time.
Dude.
So, of course, you're going to be able to sell more than you probably ever were.
Also, maybe it's just down to the fact it could be fucking Leon versus Bilal as well. And they're like, well, it's going to put people to sleep anyway, so we might as well put it at 3 a.m.
Jesus.
Wouldn't you say the UFC haven't actually done as great of a job as you probably would have hoped they would have done since becoming a multi-billion-dollar company, making MMA and the UFC entirely international? When you go back and you listen to some of those Dana White interviews from literally 2005, 2006, when he's trying to work out the HBO deal, and he's just like, here's what we're going to do, we're going to make this international. And they really kicked it off in do you remember UFC 70, UFC 73 and UFC 76 were all in London. They had fucking Crow
Bisping versus Evans for no title at all. I'm pretty sure was the main event in Manchester.
They clearly were making a big fucking stab at, getting these fights more international,
in Europe,
and getting the UFC out of North America and into Europe
worldwide.
But honestly, since those events, and maybe you could look towards COVID and especially now they have something like the Apex, but they actually haven't made much of a stab at really going anywhere, have they?
Because they had gone to Prague, they went to Croatia, they obviously went to Sweden. When Ioana Jędrzejczyk won the title, she was only the 3rd ever European champion in UFC history. Because I think it's Bas Rutten, and then I think they count Andrei Arlovski as well from Belarus. So the fact that Ioana was the 3rd ever European champion, at that time it was like, well, we don't have champions. And from that point onwards, then they definitely tried to go to other places. I think they went to Poland as well at one point. But yeah, ever since past COVID, 2020, really nothing at all.
Worry hard on
nothing
the Apex,
at all.
don't they?
Maybe it's literally just about optimizing. They realized that actually you can localize the events and you can make optimum amount of cash. And actually the reality of it is despite the great fan service with going to these arenas in Europe, actually they just make so much fucking more money just keeping it in the Apex.
you think it has anything to do with the growth of other promotions outside of the European
absolutely
in
not.
Europe?
No way.
No.
No, because if the UFC
they
come,
might have. Yeah.
if the UFC
They
come to
might.
town and you have the opportunity to go, you're going to go see that over your like school hall fucking.
Well, it depends because like
MMA
KSW
yeah.
in Poland, right, is full of Polish fighters and Polish fans. If the UFC come to Poland, how many Polish fighters have they got to showcase and for people to get excited about?
Well, they would just take the regional fighters.
Sure, they
and
take
would put
some,
them on
but
the
it's
card.
like
Well, Poland definitely is an exception. MMA is massive there. They have a massive promotion there.
Yeah.
And so that's probably why they haven't gone there specifically. But yeah, they can go pretty much anywhere else. I mean,
But I think they still would. I think if the UFC would still go to Poland, they'd still fucking
It'd still
sell it
pack
out
out.
in a heartbeat. You know.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the devil's advocate argument here, it's the obvious thing. The monetary side is still there, but it does feel like potentially a closed view on the long term. No casuals are watching this live when it's that early. I mean, who's investing a super, super fucking late night? You know, that's a full-on bender at that point, you know?
Yeah.
But the thing is like, you can watch it the next day, and maybe they're just banking on a lot of fans will be fine with that. It still just doesn't feel right though. I mean, it's like when they did one on TNT with one championship, and you know Eddie Alvarez and Demetrius Johnson, you know, and putting those guys on the card. Why did they do that? Because they wanted to localize it and put it on a network at that time. They didn't put it on Singapore time.
Yeah.
And supposedly, I don't know if I agree with this, but that's where they're really big. You know, it's like, oh, Americans just don't understand. You know, they're really big over there. So wait till we bring it over. And they did have a ton of success with those events, to give them credit.
Well, that, to be fair, that's, you know, you see Pride do that as well when they came over to the you know, K1 put on some massive
Brock
American
Lesnar was a
events,
K1
didn't they?
card.
Yeah, which actually that was so poorly delivered though in every aspect.
All right.
Well, it was
Jeez.
like it was aired on tape delay on CBS.
Yeah.
Like, what
Oh,
the
was it?
fuck were they thinking?
I can understand what you're saying as well, because it should be a celebration, because outside of the MMA media, when we have a UK event, that usually other media sources jump on it and they're like, oh, the UFC was in London and our UFC champion Englishman won. Then they're not going to watch it if it's at 3 a.m. So that media coverage is probably not going to happen. And it will be people banking on the fact that they watch it the next day.
Who's waking up at 6 a.m. to write that headline?
And even the Joshua and Ngannou fight we watched it in a pub. You know, it was late, but they still had it on in pubs. They're not going to have the UFC on in pubs.
Yeah.
Like, all of that's
that's
gone.
the thing. When you do watch an AJ fight, the spectacle of it is like absolutely amazing, because everyone's awake, everyone's fucking ready to go, and it's this huge thing. But you're right. Well, they're taking that opportunity away from Aspinall, really, aren't they? Yeah.
And that's how we've built our, like, I don't want to say heavyweight specifically, but that's how we've built our boxing stars.
And it's almost like they're treating it's almost like bringing it over here and putting it at midnight or like in the early hours of the morning is still treating it like it's 2002, like this underground fucking like, oh, it can only go on at after midnight kind of show. And it just kind of dampens the whole thing, doesn't it? It's just like you're not going to get that.
It's crazy, man. If it was like we got 2 UK champions coming back to Manchester at a new arena, go and watch it. It's like, well, no one's going to watch it.
You could fill that place at 10 a.m.
You can't even promote it.
It wouldn't matter what time you put that on. It would be
it's not about the arena though. It's about people watching at home and around the country. They're just not going to do it.
No,
because the whole point of like, if you look at like Tough, you know, what is the classic fucking age-old story that they tell about Tough? It's just like, well, everyone was ringing their friend and like they would. You got to watch this fight, bro. It's just like, well, you're not doing that. Fucking 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning.
Everyone's asleep.
Mom.
It's not happening. You can't call a friend. You can't text a friend at that time, being like, fucking wake up, bro. This fucking fight is awesome.
Who's going to be on the card, right? I think we're assuming Leon and...
well, who's Aspinall going to fight?
Blades.
Blades, probably.
Blades coming off a good win.
I want the Garn fight. I want England versus France. Agincourt. Let's go.
Let it go.
Garn is just refusing that fight outright, though. He's saying
coward.
He's not interested in taking
French
the fight.
surrendering.
Yep.
Classic.
Well, what's wrong, Garn? Hey? Yeah. Need a white flag, mate. So I want the fight to happen. I'm just trying to encourage.
That's his custom shorts. Actually, is getting. They're just
his white shorts.
Yeah, blanket white. Yeah.
It's gonna be like that boxing match where the bell goes off and he gets straight out. It's like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense for him to fight Blades to get that win back and go like, oh well.
Yeah, it was obviously clearly just an injury, and I'm the
just
better
don't
guy.
kick him
yada,
again.
yada.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? It just
kick
ends
him.
the same way again.
Yeah. His other leg explodes.
I told you it was a weakness.
Yeah. I exploited that.
Yeah. If you were to get a main card of all the English fighters and stuff, is that a pay-per-view that's actually going to sell big? Like, is Aspinall a big star? Is Aspinall a big enough star to go on at fucking 11 p.m. on UK time? Or does it have to go on at 6 a.m.? Because the reality of it is like Aspinall isn't actually, he can't sell. Jason, obviously you're the only non-English person here, but like, are you interested in an Aspinall, Leon, Makayev, Paddy main card, or Arnold Allen pay-per-view main card?
Well, I guess that's more of a question for the casual fans in the States, because I think whenever you're watching from home, it's kind of palpable whenever they go to a nation and people go crazy. Like, you know, Tommy's talked about this in a ton of videos when Aldo jumped into the crowd for the first time in forever, that they went back to Rio. That's like a goosebump moment because you understand how big it is for those markets. And I think as a fan, it is objectively more interesting when, and they need to do this inside of the States way more. They did it with Stipe, somebody who headlined 204 as well. They did it with Stipe when he fought Alistair. That was in front of the home crowds, right? Shouting OHIO. You know, it was like a great, great moment. And so in general, yeah, you want to see the crowd up in front of, in their element, showing out.
You know, one of the events that everyone always remembers for like the end of time is the Dublin card with, you know, where
oh my God.
I mean, in reality, like bunch of sort of like Irish guys that nobody really cared about put on like the biggest fucking crowd experience, you know, that you could feel through the TV. And I guess, you do hope that that's something that the Manchester fans can do as well. Create that noise and create those moments and make them more spectacular than the reality of maybe it actually is an Aspinall versus Blades fight. You know, without that Manchester crowd, could that really be palpable? Could you really be and feel like that's a big fucking fight without that Manchester crowd? I don't know.
I mean, there are so many moments that are kind of made by the audience, you know? It's like, I brought up this example and people don't like it when I bring it up, but, you know, Chael Sonnen versus Anderson Silva. Can you imagine if they treated that like any other fight and booed for it being on the ground and not getting, I mean, you know, you saw what happened with DC and Anderson Silva. They booed the shit out of DC because they didn't like DC at the time. So they didn't like the fact that he was trying to wrestle him. And yes, Chael was more active, blah, blah, blah. But the crowd made the Anderson fight even better. Yeah. I mean, it was incredible, you know, and the crowd being so into it. If they were booing the whole time, you probably have a totally different impression.
It's true, yeah. We're going to be doing a giveaway on the channel members, which is only $2.99 for one ticket for UFC.
That's all we can afford.
Manchester.
We're going to use the members' money.
This isn't false advertising at all. This is not like this isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
If you sign up to the membership, we are going to do a giveaway.
We can give them exclusive access to scalp tickets at the door in Manchester.
We've got a guy, he'll be there in a coat.
£500. We'll give you an exclusive link to go buy it on Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
A potential Russian.
So just you know, $2.99.